One. What up?
It's always the best way to start a podcast.
I know, I love it, dude. Um,
Scare the
first of all,
audience.
Chaim, cheers.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
Mm. Dude, so I just came from a funeral. My dad walks into the kitchen last night. He goes, "You want to go to a funeral with me today?" I'm like, no. And then he goes,
Exciting activity.
uh, "What?"
It's an exciting activity.
Not even that. It's Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And I said no. And then I said, "Well, whose funeral is it?" And he said, I actually have no idea who the guy is. He was apparently he was a Vietnam War veteran, and he just passed away, and he had a bad relationship with his family or something,
Wow.
and they're not really expecting anyone to be there, and just as kind of like a respectful send off to the guy, we were trying to get the local synagogue shul is trying to get people to show up and just pay their respects.
He was
So
Jewish.
yeah, yeah. No, I don't think any affiliation, but
Right.
but Jewish. He buried in Jewish cemetery. So I said sure,
Right.
actually. And so I went, and it was really really interesting because the dude, his son. I don't know who exactly, which family members were there and which people were, just there for the sake of being there.
Being there.
Like yeah. Um, but his son was there, and he had three grandkids, and all three grandkids just said thank you guys for coming. We weren't really expecting anyone to be here, and
Wow.
our grandfather would have been really he would have been so touched and so appreciative that people took time, total strangers, and just like people that he cared, that just total strangers just came to send their
Right.
respects, and it would have meant so much to him. And then the dad was talking about how apparently they had a bad he and the grandfather, the guy that passed away, had a bad relationship,
Right.
and and he oh, it's so sad. You could tell that he was just eaten up by guilt, that he said that they didn't get a chance to ever rectify their
Right.
relationship. And he's like, he goes, and right now, it used to be that we both had our shit that we were carrying, and now the only shit that's in the way is mine, and I have to put mine away. Like if it's, yours is gone, and you're just going to be like the person I'm going to remember is just going to be my dad. And and I have to put away all the other shit that I was carrying that made our relationship so difficult.
Yeah.
And
No, it's a sad moment when those things happen. It makes me like also like
it's
hearing
so
those
sad.
stories. Yeah, it makes me like value my family, and like as you know, which we're not going to get into, it's not hasn't been the easiest time, hasn't been the hardest time either, but it's not always the best, but it's also like, you know we live in an age where we can, you there?
I'm here.
We live in an age where it's so easy to pick up the phone, and like, something interesting, because like when Kobe Bryant died, like Shaquille O'Neal was like on live television bawling his eyes out. He's like, make the phone call, tell someone how much you love them, like it's worthwhile at the end of the day, like make amends, because like
Yeah,
on this spinning marble that we have, maybe if we're lucky 80 years, maybe you don't there's no time, you know
yeah. It's nothing.
so it's nothing. So
And
I
and the
know.
thing is, and it's never, ever, ever, ever worth. I don't know about never ever, but it's almost never worth it. It's
Right.
almost never worth getting to the point in a relationship where your parent or your child dies, and you never made amends.
Right.
And the guy, and while we were actually burying the body, the son said, he said out loud, he's like, I'm burying all the bad blood between us, and from now on, you're my dad, and that's it. And it's so sad because it's too late, and
Yeah.
it's
I think
we
as we move along in time and
we
like we get
we need
older.
we need things like this. We need things
Yeah.
like this to remember that we get caught. It's so interesting. We've evolved, and we've like the way that we live is so in the moment and so day to day that we we're so bad at taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture and saying, is this moment really something worth sacrificing so much more for? Is this
Exactly.
1 second that I'm doing, like one act, one sentence that I say to someone, one time where I slam that door, I don't answer the phone, the impact of that, like, is it worth, like, take a step back, and is it worth it in 10 years or 5 years or 50 years to say, to say goodbye to someone without, with the guilt of knowing that you haven't made those amends. I mean,
100%.
so
Yeah.
sad, dude. It's so terrible. I
It's
mean, I
like,
know a lot of people, and it's not a fault thing or not a fault thing, and it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just, at the end of the day, it's also for yourself. Like, I know people. There's so many people. I don't know anyone that's ever regretted making amends with anyone that did them wrong, especially family, before they died.
right,
That that regretted just saying, listen, we had whatever happened between us, but you're my dad, you're my mom, you're my aunt, you're my cousin, you're my sibling. I love you, and I'm sorry, and let's just, it's not going to be as close, we're not going to be as close as we could be, but at least we're not on bad terms. At least I could come say goodbye and tell you I love you, and things
right.
like that.
100%. I mean, that's the scariest thing is that like knowing that there's a finite amount of time, right? So like when you do it, how you do it, it shouldn't really make a difference. You should always be thinking about the sooner you do it, the better, because you hear
Yeah.
all these stories, and literally, the man's burying his father, and he's just like the mistakes, and like people always say, learn from other people's mistakes or learn from my mistakes, and those are things that I really take to heart. Like also, like even I'm simply on the phone with someone ordering something for work and it didn't come and I'm getting a little bit heated and angry and I'm just like I hear her kids in the background, she's working from home and she's trying to make a ends meet by doing this job, and obviously she has kids and whatnot and everything. I don't know her story. Why am I getting angry at this random lady that couldn't ship me something from Germany? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
and how much of it is actually in her control to begin with? Like,
exactly.
you're just redirecting. You're redirecting the way that whoever should be yelled at is probably not the customer support person that you're dealing with. For the
100%.
most part.
I think as humans, we also forget that, and this is something very big in the Middle East, like we always forget that everyone just wants to wake up in the morning, have a coffee, go to work, go home, kiss their kids, go to bed. Like,
Yeah.
that's if you don't want to do that, you're a psychopath. Like, that's the, that's the main thing. Like, as I get older, I'm sure you as well, like, I mean, we're the same age, but like, as we get older, like more and more and more do I yearn for the normal stressors of life. Oh, I have a little bit too much work, but I know I go home and like, oh, but I also have to make dinner. But like, those are normal stressors, and like I've really like from this person saying, ah, I wish I didn't have to bury you. I wish I could tell you these things. Like you're just
Yeah.
like taking every day and like, yeah, like one day you're upset, one day you're not, one day this, like ebb and flow of life where you just need to be able to take things really at face value and be like, hey, why am I being this way? Why am I being that way?
No,
Like
it's
there's
beyond face value, dude.
beyond face value.
Yeah, exactly. Because face value would just be that moment where you're like, no, you're a jerk, and I'm done, and like, I'm not
No.
talking anymore. Beyond face value is taking that step back. By the way, I think dealing with most of life's issues requires. I think that most of the issues that people experience, the people that are able to get past them are the people that are able to take a step back and not treat these moments like catastrophes, and just
Hmm.
say, this is just. I was talking to Rachel about this while we were dating. That, I was like, if we get enough, when we get into a fight, and when we get into fights, and when we're not having easy times, and when our relationship is, not necessarily the best that it's ever been, I was like, we have to be able to, like, we have to be conscious enough to take a step back and say, this is just one sentence in, like, a paragraph, which is a paragraph in a chapter, which is a chapter in a book,
In a book.
and
Yep.
like, and look at life like that. Like, like you say, like, yeah, we're in a fight now, but you have no idea how this sentence ends. You have no idea how this paragraph ends,
Right.
and you have no idea, like, what you can do to, like, when you read a book, when you read any book, or you're watching a movie, or you're telling a story, you don't know how the narrative is going to continue, and especially if you're writing it yourself. Okay, so now that that part's written, you could still add on.
For
You could
sure.
still keep on contributing to the point where it's positive at the end, where you have where you end. Okay, it was hard for a day or a week or a month or a year, but that's only a chapter, and like we still have a whole book of a life together. So,
A hundred
or a
percent.
series.
100%. I completely agree with that. That's something that like I strive in my relationship where it's like I'm never actually angry. It's either I'm tired or I'm hungry, my stomach hurts, oh, something at work went bad. I'm under a lot of stress. I'm under a lot of this, I'm under a lot of that. Like all of these things, like there's so many things, there's so many like variables within this equation that we called life. And like what's really funny as well is that like you start seeing these quotes by these famous like let's say authors or poets or whatever you want to call them. And
Hmm.
like, it's really like sort of like there's an equation to life that really like works and it's just like, oh, like, you know, you have 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and like you just let it boil and boil and boil. Like it's just it's just very interesting that like in my own relationship as well, the same thing with you and Rafa is like, is this fight really worth this? Is this time really worth it? Like, yes, we do need a fight, but are we fighting the right way? And it's like doing
And
every
on top of that, I'm sorry, I'm sorry,
go
just
for
to
go for it,
add,
go
because
ahead.
I agree with you, and I want you to finish the thought. But on top of that, it's not even whether the fight's worth it, because the fight might be worth it, but how seriously do you take it? How too hard are you gonna? How long is this? Like, okay, so let's say you have to actually resolve something, and there is an actual conflict, right? But how, like, okay, that conflict is just one conflict in the overarching, scheme of your entire life and relationship. It's, so yeah, it should be dealt with and it should be fleshed out, but but don't give it more than what it necessarily needs, like more than it
Yeah.
deserves.
I think it's always about conflict resolution and how you fight. Like the thing that I needed to learn was that now it's been told to me by therapists, psychologists, like everyone who's quote unquote in the know about relationships is is that it's not you versus I. It's not me versus you. It's us together versus the world. Like we are on the same team, and that's something I had to learn very, very, very. I wouldn't say quickly, but I had to learn it well
Yeah, you had
because
to learn it well, right?
my relationships in the past were not strong in that. My relationship with my parents was not strong with that because again, you could say disgusting things. You can fight dirty or you can fight correct. And I like to fight correctly in the sense that, like, okay, like, I'm not here to hurt your feelings. We have a misunderstanding, but again,
Right.
like, it goes back to everything. Like, the best thing, the best recent
But it's
reel
important
that
to phrase it that way. You got to phrase it
yeah,
that way, so that people know. Like you can't be upset at someone when you start when you start a sentence or you start a conversation. I'm not doing this to upset you or to hurt your feelings. I'm doing this because
yeah,
I care about you.
a
Then it
hundred percent.
automatically negate. Then even if, by the way, I don't know. I don't know. You could tell me whether Karen's like this or not. But when I tell it to Rachel, Rachel will still initially be offended, right? She will like because we're both very defensive. So like let's say she puts she loves putting wet towels on my bed right after she showers, if she was showers or
That's
whatever,
me
and
in
it,
my
she
relationship.
it's so annoying. So I tell her, I like, love, I'm not mad at you. I'm not angry. I'm not trying to attack you. I was like, can you please just put the towel somewhere else or just hang it on hang it on the door or something like that or hang it on the bathroom. And I'm not
Right,
trying to attack you. I'm not mad at you. And then she'll immediately get defensive. Like, that's just her reaction. I know that's what her reaction is going to be. And then like 2 minutes later, she's like, yeah, you're right. And like, that's it. Like sometimes you can't help it. You give it space to breathe because you know that it's
for
not an
sure.
attack. You're not trying to kill each other over here.
So that I have that problem. So it's like I always go defensive first, and then afterwards I'll be like, you know what, you're right. I'm level-headed. You're 100% correct. Like I need to be able, and it's something that like I constantly work on, and it's something
It's
that
not a
like
bad thing, by the way. It's just as long as you recognize it, you can even tell someone that. Like if Karen knows that about you, then she doesn't have to. Then she should be able to recognize. Okay, let me tell Charles this. Let me tell Rami this. Let me tell Motek this, and he'll be upset. He'll be upset. He'll be upset for 2 minutes, and then he'll hear me out. And like she'll already know what to expect, and it makes everything a lot easier when you have your
for sure.
expectations set in the right place.
I will say that I am better at taking constructive criticism than she is, but she's learning. Like it's
Yeah.
something that like, at first like she was like, sort of projecting things. Oh, you're on your phone, you're doing this, and now it's like, okay, like, sort of like practice what you preach, and that's something that we're very much working on in our relationship as well. But something that I did want to say with the fighting thing is that recently I saw a reel on, which is sort of, it's very much connected to the funeral you went to yesterday, where it's
Hmm.
like A psychologist was speaking at a conference, and he was like, I've never heard anyone say at a funeral, like at like 80 years old, the couple loved each other. Well, I wish I yelled at him to take the towel off the bed because it was wet. It's always like I wish I had more time to say I love you, and like everyone realizes that and recognizes that, and like that's the thing that makes me sad about the story you told about the funeral is that as much as we want to be mopey and depressed and be woe is me and the world revolves around us, no, we choose the partner that we have, and we really should appreciate it. Like I appreciate Karen every day more and more. Yeah, I came home today and I was upset, and I came home today and I was like, shoot, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, I have to work more, I have
Why
this
are you
meeting
upset, dude?
tomorrow. Just a lot of stress and a lot of things, and like experiments weren't working. But
Uh,
and that stuff. And I come home, and she's like coming over to me. She's like, "What's wrong? What can I do? What can I do?" And all this stuff. And I was like, "My throat hurts also from chemicals and things like that." But it's really at the end of the day, like it's like okay, I need 10 minutes to just decompress and
yeah,
realize that
yeah.
that
It's so important to
every
be able to do that, dude.
yeah. No, it's very important, and that's something that like I also learned that I needed, and I've told her before that like these are things that I need. Like I need to come home and decompress for 5 minutes, and if it means that I need to like literally do dishes because I need to do something with my hands, or make a drink, or eat something, or all these things where it's like I realize in a lot of time like it's because I'm thirsty or I'm tired or I'm hungry, and it's really recognizing the way your body talks to you without talking to you. Right, like
Yeah.
as many times as they want to make the joke, like about women being hungry, and then all of a sudden you like feed them a Snickers bar, and then they go back to being themselves. You know,
Yeah. A lot
that's
of
the
people are like that. It's a
yeah.
hangry
I'm
thing.
like that as well.
Hangry is a real thing.
Hangry is a real thing, and that's something that like I also need to work on. It's like recognizing that this is a problem, recognizing that I'm not perfect, and like at the beginning, like when we're teenagers, you're like, oh, I'm perfect. I can run a mile in 6.5 minutes, which is not insanely fast, but again, like it's
It's
all
really
these
good.
things.
You were never able to run a mile in 6.5 minutes, dude. No
I,
chance.
I'm using it as an example. Never did I say
Uh,
I did.
you implied
But
it. Heavy
I
implications.
no, no. I never
Okay.
ran. The best I ran was maybe a 7:26, which is
Wait.
also
When you say maybe 7:26, did you actually run a 7:26, or did you just pull the number 7:26 out of your ass?
no.
Eh.
I can send you the Strava of it, so I did run it.
Oh, it's a Strava. I don't know how accurate Strava is, by the way.
It's
Because I
I
remember
think
when I
it's
was. Yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, I think it's relatively accurate because if you map it towards the steps you take and you calculate the steps into mileage, it's relatively accurate. But again, are steps
Yeah,
that
but
accurate?
When I was in Seattle, it was telling me that I was like jogging. And it's possible that it was right. I don't think I've been able to really replicate it since. So that's why I'm a little skeptical. It was telling me that I was going for like 4 or 5 mile runs, and Strava was telling me that I was averaging um like six 650 a mile or something crazy like that. And
That's not
I was
that
really
crazy.
I know, but I don't think that I've been able to like replicate it. And like I kind of erased Strava because I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to keep on beating my own time. And I was
Right,
like, I just really like if I really want to work out just for the sake of being healthy, then I shouldn't be killing myself like this, or
right.
looking at working out like this. So I erased it. But I mean, I have a general ballpark. Like if I leave the house at 8 o'clock at night to go for a jog, and I get back, I go 5 miles, and I get back at 8:40. What is that? That's
Well, you said 5 miles into 40. That's a
right. So
five
it's
minute
40.
mile.
Oh, that doesn't make any sense then. It's gotta be
No.
more than that. Okay, whatever it is. Anyway, the point just here is that I don't know that it's I doubt that I've been running 650 miles, for 5 miles straight, um but Strava's a great app otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, I like it just because it's not for me, it's a time thing. Like, I want to know how far I've gone in 30 minutes. Because, like, if I'm not going to play basketball, which is my choice of working out, then, like, I'm going to go on a run. And I know that, like, my 5K is 30 minutes or under. So it's never below 25, and it's never above 33, let's say,
Right.
even on a bad day. So it's like
Yeah.
those things I like to do because again, like the one the funny thing again to talk about Instagram is that the funny post I saw, or not funny post, it was like this post on Reddit that was put on Instagram that was like men who are 40, like what do you suggest for people in their 20s and 30s? And one of them was like the best type of therapy is running therapy. If you run, your mental health will be so
Dude,
much
it
better.
is so good. So yeah, I totally agree. It's so good for you. I don't know if it's the best. It's kind of like it's probably a big component.
It's up
Um,
there.
it's up there. So I've had like really really groundbreaking realizations. From just from the act of jogging about myself. Like if I'm going through like a hard time or I'm trying, I have a lot on my mind and I go for a jog.
Hmm.
Like the actual, I don't know. I'm sure there has to be some kind of correlation between the actual like act of moving, in a particular direction and pushing myself, that certain ideas that are like in the back of my consciousness or subconsciousness kind of move to the front. But I've had some profound, self realizations that have been extremely therapeutic for me. Like last week actually, I was going for a jog. Um, and I was really stressed out about this, about closing on the house, and there are more and more documents I felt like they needed to be signed, and everything seems up in the air, and and at the same time, until like let's say last the summertime in my business is always very slow, and so or at least after between like Fourth of July and like middle of August, say, so it was really slow for a couple of weeks. So while I'm putting all my money into this house and getting ready for closing and fees and and whatever other shtick I have to do.
Right.
I'm not making a lot of money while this is all happening, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, either is this what my life is going to be like, where I'm just not going to have enough money to like keep going, or I was freaking out about the fact that I don't have a lot of motivation to do things I don't like, but that might be the only way for me to make money. So will I be able to do it?
Hmm.
And a lot of this is irrational. A lot of this is catastrophizing. A lot of this, doesn't necessarily have any kind of basis in reality, but it's still things that happen because we're humans and that's what we do.
Right.
And so I'm on my jog, and like let's say out of a 5 mile jog, I'm literally 2.5 miles in, and I just can't run anymore. Like it's as if like my brain had literally just froze my entire like physical body, and
Wow.
I couldn't jog, and I called Rachel, and I'm like, and she picks up, and I was just in the house 10 minutes earlier. She's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, I'm just so scared, like so scared for the future. I'm so scared, that I won't be able to handle this stuff. And I know, and I was like, I know that this isn't rational. I know that this fear doesn't like, this isn't me really what I think. This is just what I feel and what's just like overtaking me right now. And I was like, I'm just scared about this and I'm scared about that and I'm scared and I hate that when I'm scared I look to run away from things as opposed to tackle it. Like really fight or flight. I think I'm more of a
Right.
flight kind of guy, and I don't like that about myself. And so I'm telling her that, and like as I'm telling her that, like I felt the weight like slowly kind of just like draining from me, and I felt that heaviness get off my body. And then, we're just talking, and I just said, thank you so much for like listening. I thank you for letting me talk this out. And then I was able to just, I just booked it back home, and I was able to finish the jog, and I felt 1,000 times better when I got back. Um, it was
It's a
just
beautiful
so,
thing.
it was so incredible. Yeah. And so I think that like a lot of things in life, like jogging is therapeutic. It opens a door for you to be able to do things more productively. It opens the
For
door. It opens
sure.
those channels that you would have a harder time accessing one way or the other. And then when you finally do, you're like, wow, I got to keep that up. I got to do that more often.
100%. I think that's also something that's just like to go back to your relationship, like that takes a lot of work. And I'm not there yet where it's like where I have these stressors and I don't necessarily want to tell Karen or I don't necessarily want to tell anyone or like, I'm bummed out about something. And that takes a lot where it shows that your
Dude,
partnership,
I had to force it out of me, man. It was so hard. It was
yeah,
so hard for me to tell her that. It was because you're admitting that you
have
especially, and
feelings.
not even that you have feelings, that whoever it is, who are supposed to be an anchor. Listen, in a relationship, everyone is necessary, right?
Right.
Ruffle's necessary. I'm necessary. We're all anchors in our own way in keeping our relationship grounded, keeping our life moving forward, and taking the next step at a time. And and if you and but no one's perfect. And at the end of the day, like
Right.
the reason why we have a hard time doing that is because we're admitting that we might be vulnerable to not do what we know are supposed to be our jobs, but ultimately talking about it and ultimately getting it out and ultimately figuring, coming to terms with it will actually allow you to do your job better. And you're actually being more responsible by taking the more difficult route, you know?
Right. And I think that like as someone who it's hard to do that, people actually appreciate when you're more vulnerable and like you can show
Well,
that side. So Rachel for sure appreciated it and wanted to be a part of this and is a part of your journey of life and is a part of all these things. So it's very, uh, yep, I
okay,
hear
sorry. We're back. I got cut out as soon as you started responding. So just say your last sentence
you.
again.
So all I wanted to say is that I'm sure that Rachel appreciates it, but it also allows her to be, a,
Me, Avrumi,
yeah,
start
yeah.
again. Last time, dude. I'm sorry. Last time.
No worries. What I've been trying to say is that Rachel wants to be that partner for you. So that all good.
I have to figure out how to cut all this out. 1 second. Okay, we're back.
Is
I
this the
don't
first?
understand.
Is this the first one you're going to edit?
I don't want to have to, but I literally just two people just called me 4 times each, so it just went through and cut out the podcast. Okay, we're back though. I hope that doesn't happen again. Okay, last
Okay.
time. By the
So
way,
basically,
I'm buying a separate iPad that's not connected to this
that's a good
number or not
idea.
connected to anything, and so no one can interrupt the podcast from now on. We could just do it like that. Like as
Not a
time
bad
goes on,
idea.
when this gets better, and as I get more and more invested in it, I'm going to invest more and more into making it better, and that's the next step I have to take for sure.
That's the goal, man. That's the way to do it. You know,
Okay,
you
I'm
buy
sorry. So
one
anyway,
thing.
continue, dude.
So what I've learned also is that I forget there was a rabbi that said this, and I forget who, but your life is not a singularity, right? When you decide to get married and build a home with someone, you have to allow that person to be a partner in that because that's what you're signing when you sign on that dotted line for this partnership. And you doing that really shows the I don't want to say the extreme of it because that's not the correct word, but it shows the epitome of it. That's what I'm looking for. It shows the
Yeah,
epitome of that partnership that you're allowing this person into your life so much that she is you guys are one in that sense. You are a unit in this unit that you're able to really allow her in. And again, many couples fail at this, many couples do well at this, and like me, I'm working on this because this is something that's very important to the success of a marriage, a relationship, a partnership, and it's something that's very cool to see because it's you as one of my best friends and someone who I look up to as well for a lot of things. Well, also because you're 6'4", but
ha 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 ha
but
ha 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 ha. Okay. Sorry.
yes, but
Not sorry, but yeah.
But yeah, but it's really a beautiful thing, and I think a lot of people strive towards that unity, towards that oneness, towards that ability to really. Hebrew sort of really puts it in a good way. It's nishatef. It means to really like to unify, to solidify, to be in a partnership, all in one word. And it's like
Right.
it's really cool. So it's like seeing that and being like, oh, okay, it's doable, and learning how to do it, and continually to learn to these I would say lessons from rabbis, from psychologists, from people who have been in successful marriages. Like a lot of the advice that your mom gave us back in the day, we still use. I mean, a lot of it. And I had a conversation with your mom, I think, a few days ago, if not on Friday, about how, like, when we were younger, we didn't take this advice. And then and she would always say, like, when you get married, this is not going to be like this. When you find a girl, this is not going to be like this. When you want to move forward in a relationship, like, and it's taking all that advice. And I think really you've taken that plus your own, plus growing on your own, and all those things. And you can really see it in the relationship, and it blossoms that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, and the other thing is that, listen, my mom has the wisdom that she has because she's been in a relationship for over 30 years, and believe me, growing up, everything was not what she's preaching right now, and it's another thing. It's just, I think a lot of things in life are just a matter of being able to take a step back one of the things that Jordan Peterson preaches, which I think is really, really, really so important, that I found for myself as someone that was always extremely tough on themselves, is as long as you're doing better tomorrow than you are today, or as long as you're better today than you were yesterday, you're in the right direction. And like that's really, really, really all you need, because the more that you look at life like that, the more patience you give yourself, the more kindness you do for yourself and for others, and the more that you're able to actually consistently advance. As long as you say, this week I did, let's say you want to work out, and like you worked out twice this week, and the next week you worked out three times or two times and you ate healthier. As long as you're better, one day over the next, or then it's just a recipe for success overall. The other thing I was also so I was listening to a podcast with Andrew Huberman, or his podcast with
Your second love.
yeah, dude, I love that guy. I'm so like I'm so what I'm so impressed. I'm impressed with him for a number of reasons. Number one, he like I never thought I would like science or health or like biology or anything like that. And he's one of the only people that's ever been able to provide that kind of information to me in a way where I enjoy it and it's applicable and it makes me want to learn more, and it makes me want to figure out more about what's the best for myself and just in life in general, because he doesn't just focus on the body or just on the whatever, but he focuses on everything. And these are really, really grounded important tools that his love for learning is so, and his love for for just being productive is so contagious that I love it. And it makes me want to do more for the first
I
time ever.
I think that's why I love that he's in this position that he is. He's at Stanford, which is
Yeah.
one of the elite universities in the world. And to show like that's what makes me like sort of like, oh, okay, I understand now why Ivy League is a little bit like Ivy League. If you have people like Huberman at your institution
Yeah,
who
but he's rare,
integrate,
dude.
he's rare, but I'm saying like
He is rare.
if you have a few of those, I mean like you and Binghamton would say you would have a few of those professors. I at Rutgers had zero of those professors.
Really, he didn't?
I don't think I have a single one that like besides for like a professor that would do would TA
Yeah,
our what's
sure.
it called recitations. Like she was really great and she was super helpful. Was she a Huberman level that I was like, oh my God, this changed my life? No. Did I stay in contact with her a few years after college? Yeah, but it
Yeah,
didn't
but that's what
amount
you
to.
need, dude. That's what you need. Listen, Huberman, I think is one. I think Huberman is really, really, really an exceptional human being, both in his temperament, his presentation, and his knowledge. Right? Like he happens to be one of the few cases of individuals that really has a little bit of everything. He does a really good
Right,
job being, quote unquote, politically correct, as in he he stays so apolitical that it's literally, I mean, I don't know how anyone is ever upset at anything that he says or does. Like he's so clean and he's so clear cut and he's so honest and he's so there's not a single bone in his body you can tell that is there for any other reason other than to just share goodwill and growth overall. And that that
100%.
that and the thing, and it's so rare because power is contagious, and power and, fame is something that from 99.9% of people just takes over you. And like, and you might not even know it's part of who you are until you get it,
Right.
and then when you do get exposed to it, you're like, this is incredible. Like you don't even realize it. It's like it's almost like some other part of you just just takes over your brain. I mean, I think I've mentioned this. I don't remember if I talked to you about this particularly, but when I was teaching, I found myself in a situation a lot where a student would ask me if they could do an assignment a certain way, and I'd be like, no, and then or if they could do something, and I was like, no, and then I got stopped, and I forced myself. Like, I don't even know why I said no. I don't even know why I'm
Right.
shutting this person down, other than just the fact that I just have power over this kid, and like his grade is up to me, and like, what he does with his time is up to me. And I'm not a power hungry person by any stretch of the imagination. I don't really even care to be famous at all, because that takes away from your ability to have any kind of private life, you know.
Right.
But but this feeling of just, like, it's my way or not, and like you got to listen to me. that's way more contagious than I think we care to think, and it says something about who he is as a person that that Huberman strays so far from that, and just
Right.
he clearly has absolutely no interest in in being that kind of guy over anyone. Like he
The
just wants
status
people to do
quo
well.
type of guy.
Right, right. So I think that's what's special about him. Anyway, so what he was talking about with in this podcast I listened to, I forgot her name, but I have to check back on it. I talked about it in my last solo episode, but there was this idea called the perfect day, where they
Marlene
walk.
something?
Mm, it's an old school name. Let me see if I can find it real quickly.
Because I remember you
Um,
talking about it with Zach, I think.
that was Zach. Martha Beck, that's her name.
Martha Beck.
And she was great. But one of the things she has is this exercise called the perfect day exercise, where you imagine what your perfect day, like you just go through, what's your ideal regular day in your life, you know, and then just the fact that you're thinking, so you start to by waking by you wake up and your eyes are still closed. What do you hear? Who's in the bed? Who's in the bed next to you? Who's in the room next to you? Is anyone there at all? Then you open your eyes. What's your room look like? What's ideally, like just every day of your life, what's the ideal way that your room looks? What's the ideal way, like where the location? Where are you? Look out the window. What's the ideal place that you find yourself? Who's in the house with you? Is anyone in the house? Is anyone around? And then the more that and then if you practice this consistently, you don't even think about whether it's practical or not. You just think about what you would like. Then I think human beings, especially with our brains, we're pattern creating machines and we're goal oriented machines. Like I think that the more that we bring this idea of like what our perfect life is into, the more that we focus on it and bring it to the forefront of our consciousness, the more likely that we are to take steps to have it happen. Right. So, for example, like my thought, I was thinking the entire time, like one of the most ideal things I would imagine is just waking up and hearing the sound of kids playing in the, like, outside my bedroom, and like my kids playing outside my bedroom,
Right.
like to me that has to be like the most beautiful thing in the entire world, that to look out the window and see like a little property where, or a comfortable enough property where my kids could like run around and play.
Play
and
outside.
and then as time went on, by the way, because my first, I lived in apartments, and then I lived in a townhouse, and now I'm buying a single family home where I'll have my own yard and my own back, my own pool and my own space. Like, like that will be the space for my family to be,
Right.
for this perfect day to happen. The steps that I'm taking are allowing that to exist, and the more that we think about it, the more decisions that we make that will help lead us there. Is her argument, is her point, and apparently it works very, very well. Um,
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
it's
like,
really cool.
how do you feel like that's changed over time? Because for me, like, I've lived a few perfect days in my life, quote
Hmm.
unquote. Like one of them was like even last year where we woke up, you, me, Rachel, Karen, Munch, waking up that first day in Orlando, or like waking up in your house. Like those were like perfect days where I was like, I felt like, wow, this is what I've been dreaming of for the past 6 to 8 months. When we booked tickets to fly in and we were planning, we bought Disney tickets, Universal tickets, everything. Like, just waking up next to Karen, and you guys were in the room over, and like all those things, like living that perfect day. So like, do you think you've lived multiple perfect days in your life
Yeah, dude,
already?
dude, I'm so lucky, man. But I think I'm lucky because I think that there's a different. I think they kind of go hand in hand, although they're not the same thing. I think there's a difference between being having gratitude and appreciation for the life that you're living, which makes you happy. So like you wake up and like let's say I have one kid right now. I would like to have a bunch of kids, but this one kid is still the most incredible thing in the entire world. I would like to
And he's
be,
cute.
and he's really cute, right? Um, but the point, like so I still have things that I try to be happy with where I am, and have a lot of gratitude for where I am so far, but still not take my eye, like don't not letting that just be enough, and
Right.
not taking my eye off the ball, off the ultimate goal or the next goal or the next step. And I think that the more that we have goals and steps, that's what keeps us young, that's what keeps us engaged with the world, and that's what keeps us moving towards getting more, like it keeps us productive. It keeps part of the world.
For sure. And that's really the goal now. The goal now for everyone is to keep going and keep thriving. And that's like again, like the thing that we spoke about in the beginning, like that's it's choosing to be happy because like like I think one day I came to you and I was like, I'm upset, like I don't know what to do, all these things and whatnot. And I'm just like, like, and you were like to me, think back to when you were, think back to when you really like were struggling as a student and all these things. And now you have basically everything. You should be happy. Happiness is also a choice, and
Yeah.
I choosing to be happy. And that's what I do.
Well,
Yes, there
it's all
are
perspective. It's also perspective.
exactly.
It's happiness and perspective. I think go hand in hand, by the way, because I think that happiness requires work, right? So happiness requires that you spend X amount of time doing, X amount of expending X amount of effort, and then, and you can, and then generally speaking, no matter whether the results occur that you expect or not, putting in effort into things will almost automatically or guarantee you a positive result one way or another. And so but
100%.
and then at that point, you can choose to either focus on the fact that you put in effort and now you're somewhere else than when you started and you're happy with that, which is one thing that you got, that people do, or or it's not. I don't think it's one or the other, but then also not only am I happy with the effort I've put into and how different I am now than I was yesterday or a year ago or 5 years ago, but now that I know how different things are, I'm going to keep on trying to do that so that I could see what's down the road for me, and I could see what life has in store for me that I haven't even been able to expect. And
Right.
that's almost like keeps you excited for the future. That's the adventure that's out there. That while it's scary, you have to trust on the fact that that through effort you're in a better place than you were before, and you have to trust that process.
100%. I mean, that's the thing also. Like, my favorite line recently is "Man planned, God laughs." And it's like it's
Sure.
really true. It's the things that like how did I end up here in Rehovot with with Karen with all these things and we are working across the street from each other and then my company opened back up. Like I just learned that I need to just be like go with the flow and like
Right,
God plans things.
and how many times in the last couple of years have you felt like everything was like everything like oh, man, what am I doing? And then you realize, oh, that's what I was doing. That's what I was figuring out. That's what I had to do to get here.
Exactly. It's like all these things where I used to, and this is funny. Like when we were, let's say 18, 19, 20, 21, I used to always make fun of the YU Stern girls who would be like, I'm waiting for my husband, I'm waiting for my wife, for my life to begin, and all these things. And then all of a sudden, I realized, let's say 3, 4 years ago, when I was 25, 26, where I was like, I'm literally doing the same thing, where I'm not necessarily waiting for the person. I just kept on saying, no, like my life will start when I buy a house. My life will start when I buy an apartment. My life will start when I buy a car. When I have the job. When I have all these things. And like one thing that you've always said to me also is that your life is now, dude. You're living. Like you gotta move. You gotta do your thing. And it was
Yeah.
that's just the crazy thing is that like I was always upset because I was always waiting for the next thing and waiting for the next thing, and then I would accomplish something like I would finish my master's degree, but I wouldn't have a job, or like I would finish this degree and I wouldn't have this, and like I was always looking for this next thing, this instant quote unquote not instant gratification, but like I expected to be somewhere else, and now like I'm not expecting to be anywhere. I'm expecting to
And
be
you're waiting for that movie moment too. Where a lot of times
exactly.
we're waiting for that riding into the sunset moment. But we don't realize that riding off into the sunset just means you're dead. Like at the end of the day, like
Exactly.
that's what happens. If you have a movie where the couple rides off into the sunset, either the next movie, oh, you didn't watch Entourage.
No.
Well, Entourage adds like this ridiculous. I love everything about the show.
But the ending.
The end, no, it's not even but. It's just because like the ending was funny and entertaining, but the end was a little preposterous. How everything happened to work out, right? And everything worked out perfectly for everyone in the show, right? And then
Movie
there was like,
magic.
then yeah, that's right. So then the movie, so a couple year hiatus, and the movie comes out, and the movie immediately begins by undoing everything that ended at the end of the previous episode because there's nothing to write about, there's nothing to live with, there's no life riding off into the sunset. Like
Right.
once you ride off into the sunset, you're dead. And like that's the end of your life. So what are you gonna have? You're gonna have a movie where everyone's happy, there's no conflict, and everyone just like lives a perfect life, and that's the end of it. I mean, who's gonna watch that? Who's gonna like it? Who's gonna care about that? Who's gonna relate to
It's
it?
the American system because I have a friend, I think you know him, Shlomo, whose mom is from Mumbai. So they're Indian. And Indian movies don't end that way. They
Hmm?
end in sometimes Indian movies like
But
Bollywood does
yeah,
not always not the core Bollywood dancing, singing and everything, but like there was a movie called Nirja where Shlomo's mom took a bunch of us out to see it because this story, like she's really proud of this story because it's an Indian stewardess that saves the lives of many people by sacrificing her life from hijackers. And like the story ends, you expect her to be safe and okay because that's the American movie
yeah,
telling, and then all of a sudden we see her in a box in
yeah.
her casket. I'm
By
just
the way,
like,
I like that
well,
more.
it's real.
I
It's
like that
because it's
more for
real.
sure. But it also but it also helps people realize that in life there really are stakes. Like
Yeah,
not every difficult decision ends up okay, but at the end of the day, like this movie emphasizes, you might not be there for the better world that you're creating, but the world is better than the way you left it.
right. I
You
think
know,
this is also, it also goes into like a funnier, not a funnier conspiracy theory about a movie, but the movie Grease, how does it end?
I don't know. I never saw it actually. Can you believe that?
Definitely, it's worthwhile. It's definitely like it's an
I know it's a
interesting one.
classic.
It's a classic. Grease two or three, like they made like two or three movies after that, not worth it. The first Grease movie, masterpiece. It's the original, as they used to say on like Saturday nights, the original High School Musical.
Right.
Um, and what happens at the end of the movie? Sandy and Danny take literally a car, a black Cadillac, which is sometimes known as the funeral car, up
Yeah.
to the quote unquote heavens. They fly into the sun. And the conspiracy theory behind it is that Sandy, when Danny was in Australia, if people have watched, it's not a spoiler. The movie's been out for 50 years. When
Yeah.
Sandy's an Australian who moved to wherever Rydell High is in America, and then dated Danny during the summer. And then what happened? They got back together. But the conspiracy theory is that Sandy was in chemotherapy.
Mm.
Danny was her guardian angel, bringing her to heaven. So
Wow.
it's like it's
It's crazy.
exactly what you just said because if that it's not it's a theory about the movie, so it's like it's exactly what you said. It's this what happens, and I think what happens post the happily ever after. And I do think there is a movie
Yes.
called After Happily Ever After, and it's like terrible things. The relationship is shit. Everything goes downhill. The prince goes bankrupt. Like
Yeah. You know who does that really
once
well? Also, Scorsese does that well too.
Scorsese's great.
In all his movies, you have like these guys, and like the first half of the movie is the guy chasing the girl, and then they get happy ever after, and then like he has like a famous. He does like a lot of his movies, a famous cutscene to 5 years later, 10 years later, and they're
Yeah.
fighting like cats and dogs, and they hate each other, and he's cheating on her, and there's drugs everywhere, but yeah,
Well, that's
like
the thing. Also,
yeah.
Godfather. Like in
What about
Godfather,
it?
like you see how like they thought they had the perfect marriage and all these things. He comes back from Sicily after he was in the quote unquote mafia witness program. I think this is Godfather 2, which is like known as like the best one, if I'm
No,
not
no.
mistaken.
It's
Isn't it?
arguably
No.
as good as the first. The consensus is that out of the two movies, the first the first is as good, potentially better. Not sorry, is potentially as good as the first. The second one's potentially as good as the first. I don't know if anyone says the
I
second one's better.
I thought that was the shtick. I thought that everyone says
And
the
well,
second one
also they
was
by
the
the way they
best.
got instead of along with Marlon Brando they got Robert De Niro. I think that was his first that was his first mafia character that he played.
Yeah,
Um, Dude,
which he was
looking at him in
fantastic.
that movie he was so young, dude, to watch. If you watch Godfather 2 and then you watch The Irishman, and you
Or like
see,
Meet the
like,
Fockers.
I mean, the Foggers, and you watch this guy through his life, dude, it is crazy.
Yeah,
It's so cool how you can watch someone play the same role for 60 years, and
it's nuts.
whatever. Yeah, it's crazy. It's really cool. It's really, really cool.
He's really great. You actually told me to watch Godfather. I think I watched it for the first time out like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was like, no, it's too long. I don't want to. I can't get into it. And then I'm watching it, and I'm like, wow, this movie
It's
is.
so good.
It just
By
holds
the way, the
up
book is better. Have you read the
years.
book?
No, I definitely, it's a read that I would
Dude,
definitely get
you
into.
would love, but not only would you love the book, you would read it in one sitting. Like you'd get it Friday, like you'd pick it up. I would recommend you pick it up Friday night, after your meal Friday night, and
Yeah,
start reading it. By the time Saturday night comes, you'll probably be done with the book.
for sure.
Like it's so because it's an easy read. It's so immersive. It's so good, and I think the book contains the stories of Godfather 1 and 2 in the same book, and plus more. Like it goes more into all the characters, and there's a lot more details. Like I think for the movie, which always is the case, they kind of have to choose a protagonist to focus the lens on, like what their lives are going to be like.
For
But
sure.
in the book, you have more space to kind of go back and forth between characters. So Mario Puzo in the original book gives a lot more space for each character to breathe and like develop. And when you watch them, and then when you read the book and then you watch the movie, you're like, wow, that's who he is, and there he is, and now I know his whole backstory. And then the movie is always making little references to the book,
To the
to the
book. I
things that
love
they
that.
couldn't fit into the movie, but they want to get. You know,
No, for
it's really really
sure.
cool.
I'll pick it up. I need to see if they have it in English here in Rehoboth, but for sure. But then also, I know you spoke about it, but Harry Potter on HBO. So
What do you think?
with exactly what you just said, I think I know what you probably think about it. But what do you feel about it in general? Because I'm not a purist when it comes to things. Like the only purist I like to be is with Willy Wonka. The original
Mm,
movie was better than any movie they're ever going to make again with Gene
yeah.
Wilder. But like let's say with Star Wars, I don't watch Clone Wars. I like all six or seven or however many movies there were,
There's
like the
nine now,
main
dude. There's
ones.
nine. There's been nine in like that series, like, with that same Skywalker I guess
Yeah.
trilogy expanded.
There's another one
Um,
coming.
yeah, but now they're focused. Now they're shifting the focus. The truth is that Star Wars was done. 4, 5, and 6 were incredible. Were excellent. I hated one. 2 was okay. It's kind of entertaining fluff. 3 was good.
Yes.
7, 8, 9 was bad, but in the meantime, and I have memories of this actually from growing up. Someone wrote, I don't know who it was or who got the rights, or I don't really know the story behind it, but they came out with books of that elaborated on each character and each story and each point in time between the fourth movie, 4, 5, 6, and then 1, 2, 3. So the whole
Right.
Clone Wars and the whole like all the Jedi, the what happened when all the Jedi's were killed out except for the last couple of them, and where were the last few of them, and whatever it is. So they did an incredible job building up that whole narrative in this literary world that they never captured on film. And right now, what Disney's doing, I think, is they're capitalizing on the only successful property that they've been able to have, which is The Mandalorian, out of the Star
Right.
Wars properties. And so I believe that the next movie that's coming out is a Mandalorian movie, right?
Yeah, with Groku, whatever his name is.
I don't remember, dude. Baby Yoda, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Baby Yoda. It's like the
And the
same.
Bounty
It's like
Hunter, yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
because that's the only because they threw a bunch of things at the wall, and that's the only one that really stuck, from my
Right.
understanding. I thought. Did you watch Obi-Wan?
I, did I? I had Disney
If you
Plus when
did
it
and you
came
don't
out.
remember, then it's not worth watching.
I did. The only one that I recently liked on like let's say Disney Plus was the Loki series, but I stopped watching a lot of
That's
TV and
Marvel.
what did I say?
I said Loki, which is Marvel.
Right, but I'm saying on Disney Plus, like in the whole thing, like of the
Oh,
whole
in general,
universe
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
In
yeah, yeah,
general, like of what's on it. Like Star Wars, I don't really, because Star Wars is to me, I really only think of the movies. So like I don't really watch The Mandalorian. Like if I'm gonna
yeah.
speak about like not being so into like ruining canon and everything like that, that's probably like the highest level I'll get to. Like I wouldn't mind watching, but I'm not that big of a fan of any like series that would like
Right, that
force
you're
me to
invested
watch it.
following like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
like I like the movies. I'm a purist in the sense where it's like I like the movies. Like I'm not really gonna watch the shows, and like the movies are the movies, and like that's what I really like about Star Wars. Like I have no problem. The last one where like was so like instead of Mark Hamill being Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill was Mark Hamill in the movie. Like because over
Hmm.
the years, like that's what I really didn't like, where he like shrugged off his shoulder and like everything like that. I'm just like that's not Luke Skywalker. That's Mark Hamill.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
It's tough. I talked about this, I think, with Oren. But it's the business of Hollywood. The business of Hollywood is that is that you take you take a couple of risks, every now and then. If one of them turns out well, then you turn that into, then you go from a risk taker to a conservative, and then you just keep on building on exactly what won you that first risk to begin with, right? So,
Yes.
so at a certain point, I mean, everyone's like this. It's not. I'm not blaming Disney or Star Wars or anything like that. But at the end of the day, like Disney knew that that Luke Skywalker's character and actor had so much recognition that they just had to.
Bring him
You
in.
can't, you couldn't not. And by the way, financially, they did well enough that like forget about ruining your reputation. They didn't lose money, and forget about the fact that no one likes Star Wars franchise and everyone feels like it's like, like they really they soaked everything they could out of it. Like, listen, they made money. They opened incredibly. They made, everyone walked away with making a lot of money. And so you know what? So it wasn't the most critically acclaimed show of all time or movie of all time. Like, okay, big deal. We made money. So they're happy
So
with
that's the
it. So
funny
now
thing
they
with
all got,
Marvel,
yeah.
because I was watching interviews of like influencers at D23, and like popped up on my
Oh, dude,
feed,
what
and
do you think of the expansions?
I think they're insane. It's definitely something I would love to talk about because you and I both love the parks. I remember Zach said he's like his dad doesn't like it anymore because it's a hassle. Like the hassle of Disney is a part of the Disney experience. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I have to run here, I have to do these things. I mean, at least in our quote unquote modern history of the parks. But to
Yeah.
go back to the D23 thing, it was really funny. There was like, what's your like one hot take of like what's happening in Disney right now? And what the guy said, the hot take is that Disney is ruining the MCU by using the multiverse, bringing
You think
someone
so?
back. I very much agree with it because that's why Iron Man is one of
Hmm.
the best Marvel movies ever, if not it is the best Marvel movie. Because the character development and everything, he said, stop bringing people back and stop bringing just because people, the audience, the fans want it. Build quality stories and build quality backgrounds and they'll come. Like it's sort of like the if you build it, they'll come. And it's 100%
Yeah,
true
yeah.
because like I loved like the Hulk movie, the original Hulk movie, and I love Captain
With
America,
Ed
and I
Norton.
love that one. I love too. I do like what like Mark Ruffalo as well as
By the way, do you know
um,
that? Do you know the whole story with Hulk? The reason why Hulk never got a movie was because another studio has the rights to Hulk, or the
that's
Hulk
the
movie,
same
so they were
thing with
never
Spider
able
Man.
to. No, well, until Sony and Disney came to some kind
An
of
agreement.
understanding, but it never happened with the Hulk, and
That's
whatever
so
whichever
funny.
studio owns them owns the rights to it. But so Hulk as a character is allowed to exist within the MCU, but they cannot have a movie with the name Hulk in the title.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, dude.
I
That's
think they
that's
made
why
a
that's
pretty
why it
good
never, because
movie
Mark
though.
Ruffalo is loved for Hulk, and he's a great Hulk, right?
He's
But
a great Hulk.
and you would imagine, especially because they gave everyone else a movie, right? That you'd imagine they'd give him something, but he's always tacked on to another movie. The
For
Thor,
sure.
a third Thor movie or the
Ragnarok.
Avengers or whatever. Yeah, like he's always a tag on character, and the reason is because Disney never actually got the rights for him in the end.
For sure. I mean, I just think that, like,
By the
yeah,
way,
I mean, I would,
I don't want anyone to get mad at me. I'm 90% sure that's the case.
it
I'm not
makes
100%
sense.
sure.
It makes sense. Like, I mean, the Spider-Man thing was the issue. And then Tom Holland, like, leaked it that they came to an agreement. It all came out and all these things. And it's just like, I don't
He
know.
called
But
Bob Iger, dude.
yeah.
He called
Oh my
Disney
God. I
CEO.
love
It's
Tom
crazy.
Holland.
He's the man, dude.
He's
He's
the
sober
man.
for like he's sober for like 2 years or something crazy like that.
He's like our age also, which is the crazy
He's
thing.
our age, dude. Yeah, and it's actually funny because I was watching Civil War with with Ari, my youngest brother, just a couple of days, maybe last week,
Not to be
and
confused with Ari Menzelo.
correct, and we're watching it. Civil War is the first time that Tom Holland Spider Man is introduced in the MCU, and
Right.
dude, he's the same age as us, and he looks like a fetus in that movie.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking back to when that movie came out and what we were up to in our lives, and I'm like, it is so crazy, like what he's up to
How
now
old
and
are
what we're up
we?
to now. We're the same age. I mean, I think that movie came out, I believe, in 2015 or 16. right?
So
So
we were finishing college.
no, dude.
I
I
graduated in
graduated
fall
2017.
2016.
Yeah, but you were a year ahead of me.
I
You were
was
21 or 20.
20
And
20
by the way, they
20.
probably were filming the movie a year before it came out. So let's say he was
True.
18 or 19, right? Because
Yeah, so
assume the movie
nuts.
was filming for for I mean, most of the time they take about a year and a half to from the time they finish filming to releasing it.
Right,
He could have been 18 when that started, you know. And what
right.
our lives were like at 18, dude. Dude, I was a joke, man. It was so funny.
Yeah, I have no idea, dude. To think back to those times, but also when we were 18, that was our first Disney trip.
That's dude, 18 was really crazy, dude. 18 was crazy for me. Because I turned 18 when I was in Israel for the year. So,
That's true.
so I'm having all these first experiences. I'm still essentially like a baby.
A
You
fetus.
know, I mean, yeah. Um, and I was only, I do remember, I had for the first time in my life, I had the confidence of like being myself that I never have had before. I didn't have that in high school. I didn't have that, you know, in middle school. I didn't have that in camp. I didn't. There was a certain. There was. It was the first time in my life where I had a certain sense of like
Self.
I got life. Like I could do it. Like
Yeah.
I could figure things out myself. You know, and
I
it was
think
the
it could
best thing in the
be
entire world.
I think it could really be attributed to the fact that you're just surrounded, and this could be a theory, this is a good Huberman question, of the amount of pure testosterone that you're surrounded by and the toxic masculinity that's surrounding a yeshiva on its own, where everyone's trying to show off, oh, I'm this cool, I'm that basketball player, I came from this school in New Jersey or that school in
I
California.
know, but you
So
would
it could,
imagine that would be harder for me to to find myself in there.
but I'd imagine also in that atmosphere that you would want, because you see quote unquote the cool kids and you see all these people and you're just like, I want to be like that. You know, now's my time to shine. High school's over, but you were already blossoming in senior year.
I was starting to, but I really I was not secure. So my sense of self worth was essentially based on who I was spending time with. And, you
Right,
know, at the time, I became, you know, senior year, I became friends with the quote unquote cooler crowd.
right,
Judah, Liam, Noah, you know, whatever. And, and I just, and like, and I had a much stronger sense of self worth just based on who I was hanging out with and who I could say that I spent the weekend with or whose graduation party I went to. But that wasn't any kind of self worth stemming from anything real. And
right,
that's the kind of value that just slips away in the blink of an eye, you know? And then self worth that's based on who you are is that's what stays with you forever, you know?
right. Did Munch just
Um,
enter the room?
he did. He did. He just came back from the park. He's figuring out how to. He's been standing by himself for the first time. Um,
Really?
yeah, which is great.
Oh,
This
I
kid's
love it.
hysterical. But yeah.
No, but I hear you, dude, with everything. Like it's just,
So
it's
18 was the first time in my life that I really felt like I actually had any intrinsic value myself that I had to offer anyone or anything around. You know, or even myself.
For sure. And I think that's like, but it's also like living alone yourself. I remember you saying you gained weight because you were eating a loaf of bread every day. So it's learning.
Dude, I had no idea what carbs were. It's crazy. I literally didn't know what carbs
Yeah.
were. I'm like, well, I'm eating eggs, and so if I eat eggs in a sandwich, and I have three sandwiches, and I ate three servings of eggs, I'm like, I'm ripped, and I'm like, nope, I'm just fat.
It's
That's
like,
just what
I can't
happened.
believe, I don't understand what's happening. It's
Yeah,
so
dude, I
funny.
was so confused, and then my roommate at the time was like, dude, why are you surprised? You do a power hour once a week, and you eat a loaf of bread every day. Like,
Oh
what are
my
you talking
God.
about? I'm like, yeah, but it's with eggs or
Crazy.
cottage cheese. And he's like, so? But it's crazy because I mean, you know, I'm pretty far from that now. But that was like my first introduction to just being a healthy adult.
For sure. And being an adult in general. And I think Munch agrees.
Yes, he does. And say goodbye, shoes. Goodbye. Hey. Okay. Um, but yeah,
But yeah,
um, that was a good
I
time,
have,
dude. I mean, that was so 18 was crazy. Wait, so tell me about so. By the way, I don't think that I agree. Going back to the Marvel conversation, I don't think that there's anything wrong with necessarily. I think that Marvel has been doing a pretty cool job and a pretty they've kept even footing on the combination between fan service and trying to introduce new ideas, right? Like I mean, let's say like I mean when they introduced the Fantastic Four in the second Doctor Strange movie, right? And what's John
Doctor Doom.
Krasinski, Doctor
Ah,
John
okay, never
Krasinski,
mind.
Jim
John
from The
Krasinski. Yeah,
Office,
yeah,
right? Like he was in the movie and he was in it for 30 seconds and they're like, nope, screw you, he's dead. And like he's done, you know, so like there was incredible fan service for a minute and then it's like, listen, we're not going to do this. We're going to mess, you know, we'll keep you entertained, but we're not going to get sidetracked from the story. And I think that they actually have been
right,
going out of their way to emphasize that. And I don't think that it's necessarily a problem either to say, listen, you have a multiverse and there's a familiar face that everyone recognizes, but is not going to be the character that everyone recognizes. So what you're essentially doing is you have the brand recognition of Robert Downey Jr. And then when you you're separating yourself from the cheesiness of keeping the same storyline. And you're saying, listen, Robert Downey Jr. is Robert Downey Jr. And you know that, and I know that. But he is Doctor Doom right now, and he's not Iron Man, and he's not a good guy. And everyone's going to come to see Robert Downey Jr. And they're going to come see him in this new role, and let's see if they can execute on how well this new role is done. So I
but
don't.
this is actually based off of a comic. That's why this specifically I'm okay with. This one is actually based off of
Which
where
one?
Tony
Iron
Stark.
Man being Doctor Doom?
Yes, because there is an experiment. Tony Stark was Tony Stark. Him and Doctor Doom, whoever his character is, the name is I don't know. But in the
Okay.
comic from I think 1980 something, this is a long time where I don't know when it's from. I'm not going to throw out a number if I don't actually know. Like the comic, and I saw this on Instagram or on TikTok or wherever I saw it, and they said
Hmm.
this one is sort of the quote unquote multiverse where Doctor Doom and his character switch bodies with Tony Stark, and Tony Stark is actually in the body of the other guy. So it works. It makes
Right.
sense. Is this a different line of the MCU that they're working on? Yeah, is this like phase seven? I don't know. But this one I
Right,
actually agree with. But
but my point is, I don't think they're ruining it. Like I think that they have enough of an idea, or at least Kevin Feige does. Listen,
right.
Kevin Feige was stretched extremely thin, right? And I don't think that I really I'm very hesitant to kind of put a lot of blame on him for the way that the way the last couple of years of Marvel has been, because I think that movies don't happen overnight. Great plot
Hmm.
lines don't happen overnight, and great characters don't happen overnight. But Disney
Right.
was demanding all of that on a regular basis
Overnight.
through multiple mediums, through movies and through TV shows and through animated cartoons and regular movies and live action, whatever it is. And they're like, listen, do it and do it well. And I don't know anyone that could. You know, I really
Right.
don't. And I can't think of anyone that could, you know? I mean, and by the way, I mean, at the end of the day, even someone like Elon Musk, right, where he gets over ambitious and promises things that don't happen, yeah, he will get things done faster than ever done before, but he's still wrong a lot about his timeline. You know, he's still
For
incorrect quite a
sure.
bit. You know, so
I
at the end of the
think
day, you're either going to compromise on the quality or you're going to compromise on the timing. And when you have a Hollywood film that's coming out, that's going to be a tentpole movie that you're your quarterly earnings are depending on it, and your reputation is on the line, and you can't change the movie, right? So you don't have the flexibility to say, guess what, this character just isn't good enough right now. We have to add more dimension to him.
right.
You don't have that opportunity. So I think Kevin Feige was really put in an impossible situation.
Listen, I seeing it that way. Like I agree with you. Also, I mean, I think there are solutions to these things. I think there are writers that could do it. Again, it all goes into the business of Hollywood. I know you spoke with Zach about it as well. But the business of Hollywood isn't in the interest, and it's like if you're going to go, this is why like I think Michael Eisner. The reason why you like him is that he saved the company because his whole big deal was singles and doubles, and then once in a while you'll hit a home run, right? And that's how
No,
he
but yeah,
created the red.
but then he got addicted to home runs because once he had the
Well,
whole
obviously,
'90s, once he had the '90s run, which was arguably one of the greatest runs in any kind of film history, right? They didn't do anything wrong for a decade, right? You know, and then they did everything wrong. And by the way, it's cyclical because Bob Iger did the same thing. Bob Iger had years where he had Tangled and he had Frozen and he had and then they acquired Marvel and they acquired Star Wars and it looked like
And
he could do no
Fox.
wrong. It lasted the same amount of time as Michael Eisner did,
Right. And then he came
So,
back because Bob
well,
Chapek, whatever his
Chapek,
name is.
Chapek, Chapek,
Yeah,
yeah.
terrible.
By the way, I think that he was set up to fail. I mean, it could be that he was
He
terrible, but
got
I
the
also think that,
company during Corona. I think that was the worst time to get it. And then right from Corona, there was a writer's strike. And the writer's strike, and then he
and
was like, I'm
and
done.
they're in the middle of absorbing 21st Century Fox. You know how big of a
Exactly.
deal that is? Like you got to yeah, it was really. I mean, I don't fault him. I don't think that he was necessarily. I don't know if anyone is necessarily the person for the job, but I don't think that he was it. And I think that, and it's funny because in this book Disney War that I've mentioned a couple of times, James Stewart wrote it. Incredible book, but Michael Eisner was actually lamenting the fact that, and yeah, I did just throw out the word lamenting in a conversation, but he was complaining about the fact that he was like, I'm probably going to be the last of my type, which is he was an English major creative that was a big studio CEO. And he was like, no one, he goes, after me, we're extinct. Hollywood is not hiring, creative writing majors that whose favorite class is a Shakespeare class. Hollywood is hiring MBAs, they're hiring lawyers, they're hiring
Right.
investment bankers that are going to make the most financially sound decisions. And he's like, and you'll see, we're gonna suffer from that. Um, but
For
the
sure.
cool, yeah,
You're going to get quantity over quality, and that's what you're going to see now. But also the demand. I think Oren spoke about it. I think Zach spoke about it. I think we're all seeing it. It's just we just need more and more and more. And it's the TikTok, it's the Instagram Reels, it's the Facebook Reels, it's the YouTube Shorts, it's all these things where it's like, give me more, give me more. Okay, I don't want to wait half a year for Bridgerton to come out. I don't want to wait half a year for Loki to come out. I don't give me it now, give me it now, give me it now. And it's the supply and
mm,
demand that like if you're not able to, so he's 100% correct. At least we're also feeling it and we're seeing it. Like, Disney also had to, at D23, they had to go against Epic Universe, which was happening
yeah.
at Universal. So it's like this whole big thing where they're doing 900 things at the parks and they're getting rid of Tom Sawyer Island. Rumor has it they're getting rid of Muppets 3D and Hollywood
No,
Studios. 100%, dude. It's a big rumor, and it might. Where else are they going to put it? They're building.
that's not true. They have so much land to build on. They don't have to necessarily replace. I mean, they're going to, whatever. I mean, I'm sad about it, but
Right?
they're going to.
They're going to because it's time. The Muppets haven't come out with a movie since I don't know. Remember that movie with what's his name with
Jason
Marshall
Segel.
from How I Met? Yeah, that
Yeah,
was what
dude. Of course.
2014,
The Rainbow
and you're telling
Connection. The
yes,
lovers, the dreamers, and me.
but
Um, so
with
I
all
was
these
I was
things,
talking to, so I was reading a book. I got in touch with this guy and I got on the phone with him. There's a book called, I don't remember what the book is now, but the guy's name is Ben Fritz. You can look him
okay,
up, and he's a Wall Street Journal writer, covers Hollywood, and he wrote this book about Hollywood and the future of film. And he also talked a lot about the Sony leak. Remember after the movie The Dictator came out, there was this whole big leak with Sony.
yes,
Um,
yes,
so he talked about that, but he also talked about the direction that movies are heading. And part of the reasons that he said that movies are have like you don't have movies like Goodwill Hunting or Dead Poet Society or Tootsie or any of these kind of dramas for the most part that aren't being released to theaters is because theaters have become so dependent on global markets. So it used to be that most of the money that theaters would make would come from America, would come domestically. But then China got into the game, and culturally, obviously, we can't be more different, especially when it comes to humanity and drama, like China. We couldn't be more different from them. So we stopped create. So because there was so much money to make there, that the only movies that would really make money were these big budget, big action franchise movies like Avengers
right,
movies or Transformers or Fast and Furious. That studios had essentially all but abandoned, any other type of movie that wouldn't translate into a foreign market. He said, but Netflix came along, and actually, so Ben Fritz was really, really nice about this because I wanted to start a podcast before this about the entertainment industry, and and talk to entertainers and talk to anyone that was involved in filmmaking at all. So writers or or camera people or lights people or props people or anyone,
Right.
and actors, directors, whatever it is. And so Ben was one of the first people that I reached out to because I read his book and I loved it. And he actually responded to me. He and I got on the phone for like an hour, and we were talking
No
about,
way.
yeah, it was really cool. Very, very cool. Very nice guy. And it was really nice for him to just literally hop on the phone with a total stranger and just talk. Um,
So
but
cool.
um, but one of the things that he said was the value of streaming services and the shift in culture, right? Movie theaters are basically are dying out, and
Right.
streaming is becoming big, right? And part of the streaming strategy is to have as many subscribers as possible. And the way to get as many subscribers as possible is to create movies that appeal to as wide a range of an audience as you could possibly imagine, right?
Right.
So Netflix, so like, and the way you could tell, by the way, that this is true is if you have a family Netflix account and you have four people in the family or five or three people in the family, and you log on to each different account and you can't even find any movie that looks interesting to you at all whatsoever. Like I know that that you've been a fan of the vampire kind of movies, like like a guilty pleasure kind of thing. Um,
Sure.
that you wouldn't be able to find that on my Netflix account unless you literally had to search it into the search option, right? It's not coming
Right.
up under recommended. It's not coming up under, and even within the genres and subcategories, it knows me well enough to not put that type of movie on there. But so they have a large enough library and they create enough of those movies that they can appeal to almost anyone that has a Netflix account, period. Right? It doesn't make a difference what type of movie you like, it doesn't make a difference what country you're in, it doesn't make a difference what language you speak. They have enough to do that. So they're the people so Netflix and Amazon and Apple and Hulu and whatever it is and all the other streaming services, they're incentivized to keep up these drama projects, these humanity projects, these vampire movies, because they know that when people sign up, if any random schmo on the street, if any random Joe on the street signs on, they have to have content for them. So they're going to just
Right.
make content, period. And it doesn't make a
Right.
difference, and so they don't care if I mean, and so studios have existed, movies have existed based on how much money they could generate in the box office, and that whole business plan shifted when streaming came out. I don't care about the box office. I don't care if I have to spend $200 million on a shitty Adam Sandler movie. I care about the fact that someone sees the name Adam Sandler on the screen and they're going to subscribe to
They're
Netflix and
gonna
they're going to
watch
stay
it.
on.
Exactly.
Exactly. You know,
Yeah,
and
I think
so
it's
so
exactly right.
yeah. So the people that are really saving cinema, what's really saving, the real movies and the emotional aspects of movies and like the quality films that aren't Fast and Furious 40, are
Right.
are the streaming services that know that they have to appeal to as wide of an audience as they could be, and so they make everything.
100%. No, I couldn't even say it better myself like that. That's really, first of all, it's very interesting, and it's like there's such a surgical way to look at these things, and it's not just like the boring statistics and everything like that. It's like really the I'll even say the neuroscience behind the way the brain thinks and how we think and what we're doing, and it's really getting behind the consumer rather than the producer, which is also very cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's always been the case. I mean, because the consumer's always in. Yeah, and the consumer's always in mind. The power as to who has the say for what makes a movie made or not has always been changing. It used to be the producer, then it used to be the director, then it's been the agency, then it's been the actor. Like the power. I mean, and now it's just general celebrity. Now it's just general awareness as to who the person is. If
Yeah.
Taylor Swift wanted to do anything in any capacity in entertainment whatsoever, she is getting it done. No and ifs or buts about it. It doesn't make a
She
difference.
could take over the world. The woman
Yeah,
is
she could
her
take over the world,
following.
legitimately. Right. She could take over the world. She can do anything that she wants. And by the way, good for her because you know
Yeah.
what? She puts out good, she puts out work, she's creative and she puts out a lot of work and she puts out music and she does it consistently and she's disciplined about it. And good for her for doing that. I mean, I really, really believe that I don't even know. It doesn't make any sense to me why anyone doesn't like her. Like I don't like her music per se, and I don't need to
You
like the
don't
music.
not like it. You're not a fan. Exactly. You're not a fan of the
Well,
genre.
but I understand, but I still, but I appreciate the fact that she is an artist that is putting
For
things out
sure.
all the time and respects her fan base and does her best to make her fan base happy.
100%.
And so, if it speaks to me or not, I respect someone like that. I don't
You
understand
want
why
to
anyone wouldn't like her.
No, for sure. And like the crazy thing also is that if you look at the NFL ratings, when Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift started going out, the Chiefs
Yeah, they
games
skyrocketed, dude.
skyrocketed, and the amount of
Those Swifties.
money and the Super Bowl and everything. And imagine if Taylor Swift did the Super Bowl this year when the Chiefs won again. Like
Yeah.
the ratings would be insane. Ticket sales already are high for the Super Bowl. They would have been 10 times the price. I saw like a
Hmm.
video of people of like ABC News when they were there, and it was like people paid 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. They would be literally 5 to 10 times the price because of the fact that she was performing.
Yeah, and because of the fact, and it's not because of the fact that she's performing. It's because of the fact that they know that she has the biggest fan base on the planet right now. And
Yeah.
so anyone is going to follow her, right? So the question always was, who's everyone going to follow? Everyone used to follow the producers, right? Everyone used to like Bob Zemeckis, the guy that made
Right.
Forrest Gump. Incredible guy, right? Incredible director, producer, um, and he was amazing. But and he lived in a time where the producers were the person that were making the movies, and then Steven Spielberg lives in the time, and Scorsese were the 70s, 80s, 90s, or 70s, 80s for sure, where the director was the guy, and whatever the director wanted to do, whether it made sense or not, was going to get done because people would follow directors like you wouldn't believe,
For
and now
sure.
and then for a while it was actors, guess what? Tom Hanks wants to make a movie. Anyone sees the name Tom Hanks, they're going to go see the movie. Anyone sees the
For
name Hugh
sure.
Jackman, they're going to go see the movie. So they had the pull, and now it's kind of been a little more diluted to who has them. Like if Joe Rogan wanted to do any movie, if Lex
True.
Friedman wanted to do a movie, he would get any movie done in a minute that he
A
wanted to
hundred
do.
percent.
If he wanted to do a concert, if Lex Friedman wanted to do the Lex Friedman musical tour, right?
Imagine
He
that.
would get billions.
Monotone.
Dude, yeah, well, no, but do you ever see him play music? He's actually a great guitar player.
He could
He's a
be a
great
great
guitarist.
guitar player, but I would never want to hear him sing. Just be like a
Um,
monotone tune.
yeah. Um, so, I mean, the point just is that at the end of the day, right now, whoever has the most reach is just it.
Yeah, and that's the influencer culture, the influencer age. It's like that's why a lot of stars, even like Brad Pitt, is going on people's Instagrams, and Will Smith has a YouTube channel, and all these people because they know where the people are, and the people are going to follow them. And it's an easy, first of all, it's an easy way to revenue, but it's an easy way to really interact with your fans directly. Taylor Swift might not need to control her YouTube channel, but someone who is a second tier type of singer or a third tier even will control their YouTube and be like, okay, well, I'm going to be performing here and here and here, and then they sell out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, it's really cool. It's cool how I love the entertainment industry, dude. And then for a long time, also, by the way, it was agents and agencies because agents
Right.
that were
Ari
representing
Gold.
everyone, right? Ari Gold or Ari Emanuel in real life, but they would say to the studios, listen, if you want to get, I have Tom Hanks, I have Bob Zemeckis, I have Scorsese, I have Jim Cameron, and I have Margaret Robbie on my payroll.
On my
That
roster.
are yeah, on my roster. If you want to do any movies with any of them, you got to give Tom Hanks the movie that he wants. You got to give Margaret Robbie the movie that she wants because
Right.
otherwise, I'm telling all my people not to work with your studio anymore, and that
I just
flips everything
imagine
on its
Ari
head,
Gold
dude.
saying it. You can tell your motherfuckers that I'm not gonna
Yeah, dude.
do.
Yeah, but that's the way people actually spoke, and that's the way people deal with each other. And
100%.
Mike Ovitz, who had he's actually one of the more interesting people I would love for. I mean, like they wrote a couple of books about him and the CAA, the Creative Artists Agency. Uh, and I
Right.
would love for them to like kind of check back in and see what he's up to. Michael Ovitz turned the entire Hollywood world on its head, within 5 years, and then and then he got taken over by a group of younger guys. They call themselves the Young Turks, who are currently running the agency and aren't so young anymore. And then he kind of
Right.
disappeared. So he became Disney's president with Michael Eisner for like a year.
Oh
Then
wow.
that whole thing fell apart, and then he kind of just became like a quiet investor in Silicon Valley. I would love to know
Right.
what he's up to, because someone that could change the entire Hollywood industry within 5 years, literally just by their own willpower, has to be someone that, like, I mean, they have to be a force. I would love to see what he's up
Right.
to now.
A
And
hundred percent.
but yeah, so now agencies are not quite as important as they used to be either. Because they don't have as much pull, because anyone could backstab them at any point and leave the agency and say, listen, I have 500 million followers, or I have, you know, 5 million followers, 10 million followers, and I'm going to go get this project done that I want to do, whether you like it or not, and then,
Exactly.
they don't have anything to say. Um, but yeah, so I don't think Marvel's going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think that they're watering down their brand too much. I think that they made a very smart move by only releasing, I think, Deadpool for this entire year. And then
Right.
2025, I think there's only one or two movies. And I think that it's really smart because it gives people something to look forward to, and I think that it gives them time to really focus on a narrative. The other cool thing that I
100%.
heard that I read was that apparently most of the big budget action fighting scenes in these movies are actually made and CGI created well before there's even a script,
I
right?
didn't
Like,
know that.
yeah, dude. So, like, if you imagine like the scene where the Avengers are just like destroying Manhattan, right? Like, Disney will tell, or Marvel will tell this, this animation house, this CGI house. Okay, we're doing an Avengers movie, and we're doing a scene where the Avengers are, like Iron Man, Captain America. We don't have a script yet. We don't know who's going to be who, but we know that Iron Man, Hulk, and Captain America are destroying this, are fighting aliens and destroying the city, right? They don't have anything yet.
Build it.
They might not even have an actor under contract yet, right?
Right.
But but this CGI company will start working on those big budget action fighting scenes before and then they'll actually tailor the script around the rest of the conversation, which I think is so
For
cool.
sure. Yeah, no, it definitely is so cool, but I didn't know that. But sir, on that note, I do have to run,
All right, dude. Good time as always. Let's call it here.
as always.
Thank you.
L'chaim. No, thank
Cheers,
you,
dude.
dude.
And I'll probably see you again in the next couple of weeks. Or at
For
least we'll
sure.
record again in the next couple of weeks. I'll see you in the next couple of
Looking
days for
forward to
sure.
it.
All right,
For
brother.
sure, dude.
I'll catch you soon. Bye.
Bye.